You cleaned your whole house on Sunday, and by Wednesday it was cluttered and messy all over again. This pattern seems to happen every single week, and nobody has ever really explained why. Most people put it down to life being busy, or the pets, or just not having enough storage space, and none of those are the real reason. The Japanese do not have this problem, and their homes are about half the size of American ones with the same amount of life going on inside them. They also spend less time cleaning than you do, because they avoid the mistakes that households in the West tend to make without ever noticing they are making them. I'm going to show you 9 mistakes that stop your house from staying clean for longer than 3 days, and how the Japanese deal with each one of them differently. Stay with me to number 9, because it takes 5 minutes a day, and without it, you can fix the other 8 this weekend and still watch the whole thing fall apart by Wednesday. The first one is happening on a surface in your house right now, and it is usually the end of the kitchen counter nearest the door, or the hall table, or a chair in the bedroom that stopped being a chair sometime last year. Whichever one is yours, there is a set of keys on it, a couple of envelopes, a charger, something that belongs upstairs, and a receipt somebody emptied out of a pocket. You wiped that exact spot clean on Sunday, and it looks now the way it looked before you started. Nobody sat down and chose that surface. It just became the place things go, and every home in the West has one. In Japan, the closest equivalent is the shelf at the Genkan, the recessed entrance where shoes come off, and that shelf has a job and a size, which is keys and mail and nothing else. What makes this surface different from every other surface in your house is that it has no edge, so it never fills up. A drawer tells you when it is full because it stops closing, and a shelf tells you when it is full because things start falling off, but a stretch of counter has room for one more item forever. On top of that, nothing sitting there is actually wrong, since every single object has a reasonable explanation for being there, which means you never feel the moment where you should intervene. The pile is really a line of things waiting to be dealt with, and there is nobody dealing with them. Japanese homes deal with this by giving the surface an actual edge. The Genkan sits a step down from the rest of the house, so the pile has nowhere to spread out to, and the edge does the work instead of you having to remember to keep on top of it. You can do the same tonight by putting one tray or one small shelf on that surface and making everything fit inside it. Whatever is sitting outside the edge when you go to bed gets put away, and the point is not to organize the pile, but to give it a limit it can actually reach. That surface did not fill itself up though, and the things sitting on it came from somewhere, which brings us to the second mistake. Most people in the West store things by category and by how it all looks, so the medicine ends up in one high cupboard, the bags go in one closet, and the tools live out in the garage, whether you use any of it once a year or twice a day. The Japanese sort their storage by how often something gets used, and they have a word for it, saiten, which means putting an object where you can grab it and put it back without thinking about it. The test is the trip back rather than how the shelf looks when you are done. Have a look at the thing you reach for every single morning without fail. It probably lives behind 2 other things. On a shelf you have to reach up for, in a room you are not standing in when you actually use it. So it does not go back there anymore, and instead it sits out on the counter where you use it, which is exactly where it should have been stored in the first place. This is the engine underneath the first mistake, because any object whose home takes more than a few seconds of effort will eventually stop going home for good. It does not happen the first time you get lazy about it. It happens on some evening when you are tired and you leave it out just this once, and then that spot becomes its real address. What you are fighting is not untidiness at all. It is friction, and the mess on your counters is a fairly accurate map of everything in your house that got stored somewhere inconvenient. Japanese households give the things they use daily what they call a teichi, meaning a fixed spot that never changes, and that spot gets chosen for how quickly you can reach it. If you use something every morning, it gets the best place in the room, even when that leaves the shelf looking less coordinated than you would like. So pick the 5 things that end up out of place most often, and instead of putting them away again, move their storage to where you actually use them, within arm's reach, with no lid to open and nothing stacked on top. Those 5 will stop showing up on your counter inside a week. Once things stop making it back onto a shelf, there is one surface they all end up on, and nobody in the house counts it as storage. Look at your floor, and you will find bags, boxes, shoes, a laundry basket, and at least one thing that has been going out to the car since last month. The Japanese do not store anything at floor level, and part of that comes down to space, because the average new home over there is around 1,000 square feet, while the average new American home is closer to 2,400. When your house is that size, a floor you cannot walk across costs you a room you cannot spare. Stand in the doorway of whichever room in your house gets used most and count the objects touching the floor that are not furniture. Most people find more than 6, and 2 of them have been sitting there long enough that you genuinely stopped seeing them weeks ago. 2 things happen when the floor is in use like this, and they feed each other. The first is that you cannot clean properly around objects on the floor, so vacuuming turns into a job of moving obstacles before you can even start, and a job like that gets postponed more often than it gets done. The second is that objects on the floor grant permission to other objects, because one bag leaning against the wall makes the second bag look completely normal, and by the 4th bag, nobody in the house registers it as unusual. Once something has been on the floor for a week, nobody in the house sees it anymore, and the floor is the one place where things can pile up without ever running out of room. Japanese homes are built around keeping that space clear, with sliding doors instead of ones that swing into the room, futons that get put away every morning, and the habit of lifting everything off the floor before any cleaning starts. So tonight, pick up everything on your floor that is not furniture and find somewhere for each thing to go. Whatever you pick up that has nowhere to go is usually something you own too many of, and the floor was the only space left for it. Once a house stops working properly, it starts costing you money, because you buy storage to hold things you should not have kept, and you replace things you already own but cannot find, which is exactly why Japanese families handle these things early and end up saving thousands of dollars over the years without ever feeling like they went without. So if keeping your house fresh and saving money both matter to you, I have put every one of these Japanese habits into a book over at thejapanesemethod.com. So scan the QR code on your screen or click the link in the description and start cutting down on your bills right away. Some of what is sitting on your floor never got unpacked in the first place, and it is taking up more room than anything actually inside it. Things arrive in Western homes wrapped in packaging, and a surprising amount of it stays that way. So you end up with the half-open multi-pack, the cardboard box with 3 items rattling around in the bottom, and the bag sitting inside another bag at the back of a cupboard. The Japanese take the packaging off at the door and put it straight back out before any of it reaches a shelf. Open your kitchen cupboard and you will almost certainly find a box holding 2 of something while taking up the space of 12, along with a torn plastic sleeve in a drawer and a stack of recycling that has been waiting 3 days for somebody to take it out. Packaging is the biggest source of empty volume in the average home, because a box keeps taking up the room its original contents needed long after those contents are gone. That matters more than it sounds, since a cupboard that reads as full makes you leave the next item out on the counter instead of putting it away, and you have just created new mess out of nothing. Open packaging also cannot be stacked or sealed or seen into properly, so you end up buying more of something you already own, which is the exact problem waiting a couple of mistakes from now. Japanese households transfer contents out and get rid of the box immediately, and this has nothing to do with matching jars or how the cupboard photographs. It is purely about volume and being able to see what you own. You can fix this by unpacking things at your front door so packaging never gets past the entrance, which costs about 10 seconds per item and removes roughly a fifth of what feels like a storage problem. Packaging is at least something you can see. And the 5th mistake comes through your letterbox and never gets looked at properly at all. Mail arrives in Western homes and goes onto a surface, and that is genuinely the whole system for most households. In Japan, mail gets dealt with at the Genkan while you are still standing up and still in your shoes, sorted into trash or action right there, before it has a chance to touch anything. You have a stack somewhere, on the kitchen counter, or in a drawer, or realistically in both, and somewhere in that stack is something with a deadline attached to it. You know roughly which pile it is in, and you have decided twice this week not to look. Paper causes trouble out of proportion to its size because every sheet of it demands a decision, and what is actually piling up on your counter is a list of decisions you have been putting off. That is why clearing the stack feels far more exhausting than the 10 minutes it takes. And it is also why the stack always rebuilds itself, since any system that needs a decision made at the moment of putting something away is a system that will fail on a busy Tuesday. Researchers at UCLA who filmed 32 American families in their own homes found that the mothers who described their houses as cluttered had measurably disrupted stress hormone levels through the day, and visible unfinished business is a large part of what causes that. The Japanese approach is a processing point, meaning one place where mail gets handled once while standing at the door before it can land anywhere. So open your mail over the trash can at the door on the day it arrives, and give yourself only 3 outcomes, which are throwing it away, dealing with it immediately if it takes under 2 minutes, or putting it in one single tray that you clear on a fixed day of the week. The rule that makes it work is that paper never lands on a horizontal surface unsorted. Paper multiplies because nobody processes it, and the 6th mistake is about things multiplying because nobody is counting them. Western households buy in bulk and then spread the surplus around, so scissors end up in 4 rooms, cleaning spray lives under 2 sinks, and batteries turn up in 3 different drawers. In Japan, the standard is 1 category, 1 location, 1 count that everybody in the house knows. Scissors are the easiest way to test this, so go and look, and most people find 3 or 4 pairs. The same goes for tape, phone chargers, hand cream, spare trash bags, and half-used bottles of shampoo. This one is invisible, and it is the real reason cleaning your house takes as long as it does. When duplicates are spread across rooms, no room ever reads as finished, because every room contains a little bit of everything, and there is always something in it that belongs somewhere else. It also guarantees you overbuy, since you cannot see your own stock from where you are standing, so you buy another one, and that spare gets stored wherever there happens to be a gap, which creates the next duplicate. The same UCLA team pointed at big box stores and stockpiling as the moment clutter stopped being something an ordinary home could contain. Smaller Japanese homes force a single storage location for each category simply because there is nowhere else to put a second one, and the result is that people know exactly what they own, so they buy less, so there is less to put away every week. Pick 3 categories this week, gather every single one from every room onto one table so you can see the total, keep the number you actually use, and give the rest away before assigning one permanent location. Whatever you do, do not go out and buy storage to hold the surplus. Reducing what you own once is useful, and the 7th mistake explains why it never lasts. Almost every Western home has a system for things coming in, and no system at all for things going out. Deliveries arrive weekly, shopping arrives weekly, gifts and school paper and free items arrive constantly, and things leave roughly once a year in a panic before Christmas or a move. Japanese households run a 1 in, 1 out balance as a normal part of shopping rather than as a special event. Think back over the last 4 weeks and count roughly what came into your house, including everything that got delivered, everything you carried in from a store, and everything somebody gave you. Now count what left, other than trash, and for most people that number is somewhere around 0. This is the mathematical heart of the whole problem, so it is worth being clear about. If more comes in than goes out, your house fills up, and cleaning changes neither of those 2 numbers because all cleaning does is rearrange what is already inside the walls. That is exactly why a spotless house is messy again by Wednesday and why you keep concluding that you must be lazy, when what is really happening is that you are running a house with an entrance and no exit, and no amount of effort inside the house can fix a problem with the flow through it. 1 in and 1 out gets applied at the moment of buying rather than at the moment of tidying, which matters because the shop is the only place where that decision is cheap and easy to make. Starting tonight, nothing comes into your house without something in the same category leaving, and it leaves the same day into a bag by the door rather than at some point in the future. This is the single rule that makes everything else on this list permanent. That rule only works if you are willing to do what the 8th mistake describes, and most people never get around to it. Cleaning in the West means picking objects up, wiping underneath them, and putting them back down in the same spot. The Japanese order works the other way around, since siri, which means sorting and removing, comes before siso, which means cleaning. And the sequence is not a suggestion because you cannot clean a surface you have not cleared. The last time you cleaned your kitchen, work out how much of that time went on lifting things, wiping under them, and setting them back down exactly where they were. For most people, it is at least half, which means you spent 40 minutes cleaning and reduced nothing. So the room is just as likely to look messy on Thursday as it was before you started. Cleaning around your belongings is effort that produces no lasting change, and it is why effort and results have come apart in your house so completely. You are paying the full price in time and getting a result with a 4-day shelf life. Every object left sitting on a surface is a permanent tax because it has to be lifted and replaced during every clean you will ever do in that room, whereas removing that object once cancels the tax forever. There is a physical cost to it as well, since researchers at Princeton looking at the visual cortex found that multiple objects in view compete with each other for your attention, and your brain processes all of them, whether you are looking at them or not, which is why a room full of things feels tiring even on the day it is technically clean. A Japanese kitchen counter gets cleaned in about 10 seconds because there is nothing on it that needs moving first, and that is the entire trick. Next time you clean a room, turn the order around and spend the first 10 minutes permanently removing things from it before you clean anything. You will use the same total time, except this version makes the room easier every single week instead of leaving it exactly as difficult as it was. That covers 8 of them, and the last one decides whether any of the previous 8 actually hold. Cleaning in the West is an event, so there is a big session at the weekend and then nothing at all until the next one comes around. Japanese homes run a short daily reset instead, which is the Osuji cleaning mindset scaled down to a few minutes at a fixed time and treated as part of the day rather than as a chore you have to psych yourself up for. Your house really only has 2 states, which are freshly cleaned on a Sunday evening and slowly getting worse for the 6 days that follow. There is no maintenance in between, and you have never scheduled any, because cleaning has always been something you do to the house rather than something the house needs a little of every day. Everything in the previous 8 mistakes accumulates on a daily clock, since the drop zone refills daily, packaging arrives daily, mail arrives daily, and objects wander away from their homes daily. Running a weekly clean against a daily accumulation means you spend 6 days out of every 7 living in a house that is getting steadily worse, and no amount of effort on the 7th day changes that arithmetic. A 5-minute reset every evening catches all 8 of those before they have a chance to build on each other. And it is also the reason the previous 8 are worth fixing, because each one you deal with makes the reset shorter until it genuinely does take 5 minutes rather than the 40 it would take you tonight. The Japanese version takes a few minutes, happens at the same time every day, and it is small enough that nobody in the house tries to get out of it, because you are only putting the house back to where it started that morning. So give yourself 5 minutes at the same time each evening and do 3 things, which are clearing that surface by the door, picking up whatever is on the floor, and putting back anything sitting somewhere it does not belong. You are not cleaning, and you are not starting a project. You are just resetting the house before you go to bed. Do that tonight and have a look at your kitchen in the morning. All right, that is it from me. Thanks for watching, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Which one of these caught you off guard, and which one were you already doing, right? Let me know, and I will see you in the next one.